welcome to another special bonus edition of the Paul Ryder tapes. In this episode, we have the sweetest, funniest, kindest, most interesting, massively successful international DJ, producer and remixer that I've ever met. It's the legend that is the lovely Paul Oakenfold. What occupies your time the most now in terms of work? Is it DJing? Is it the record?
No, it's making music in here. This is usually where when I was working in England, I was in a dark room for 14 hours. Right. I'd start work at midday and end at 3 in the morning. One great thing about LA is because the sun shines, I can start work at 11 and finish at 6. It's got some kind of life now, and the sun's shining, and you're doing it here, and all these movies I worked on.
Oh right. Of course,
That's why I ended up living here.
Oh, that's what brought you here in the first place, doing the movie stuff.
Yeah, that movie, second next to Elvis, was John Travolta and Halle Berry, and that's what I got asked to do that movie. I came and done that movie. Yeah.
You did Swordfish?
I scored.
Wow.
And then I got asked to work on Born Identity, Tom Cruise movie, Matrix. So I ended up staying. I didn't plan to live here.
Oh right. So that was after the whole Mondays thing. Yeah. That was like 20 years ago. Yeah. And was that like an accident that you fell into the movie thing? No,
I got approached to score a film, that movie, and I didn't know how to score a film. So I'm like, I've got to take this opportunity and try. So I started to do research and ask people, and then I did it, and they had never really used the proper electronic music in film. It was always traditional score. Right. So it became a hit. As the music became a hit, the film was a hit. So suddenly I got asked to do all these films, and they want you here. So then I said to my mum, I don't know, I mean,
Oh, I bet she was upset.
Yeah, well, I left.
Let's be honest, Pills and Thrills really catapulted them into the mainstream. That album really cemented their future, really. So can you remember how it came about that you were involved in that?
No, sorry.
Can you answer?
Just joking. It came about, or came around. We'd have to take a couple of steps back to get to Pills and Thrills. So the Mondays came up with a tune called Rope for Luck. I got asked to remix Rope for Luck. That's where our relationship started. So I listened to the original. It didn't work for DJs, not just myself, but the rhythm was all wrong. And that was the beginning of my relationship with the Mondays, with Gary, the drummer, was rhythm. It didn't work for the dance floor. So when I did Rope for Luck, I'm like, okay, I need to change the drums, I need to make it more melodic, I need the structure needs to change, and that's what I did. And out of that became a record that people started to play, and the word indie dance came about. Because you could finally dance to indie music.
But how were you approached? Like, whose idea was it to bring you in, even for Rope for Luck?
So I can't remember that, but I think it was, I'd worked with bands. I think I'd worked on U2, or was it In Excess, or I was remixing a lot of bands. I was DJing in a nightclub called The Future, so I would play The Cure next to Grandmaster Flash and the Furious Five next to Bob Marley. The club was based around when I went to Ibiza and experienced the Balearic sound that it became to be known, which is basically all kinds of great music together. So I would play at this club hence why it's called Rope for Luck is the title, but it's called the Future Mix. And I sampled Prince at the end from the movie Batman, which in those days you could get away with samples. I mean, there's an NWA sample in there. There's a lot going on in that track, but it worked really, really well, and it blew up. And as I say, the media then were going, "Oh, you indie dance. Okay, it's indie dance." And then our relationship started to grow. I ended up working on another song called Hallelujah. I then went and done some shows with them in Ibiza and Manchester and London. We would go up to Hacienda. I would DJ sometimes there, and they would come down to London, and the relationship felt natural for both parties. And then London Records acquired Factory, and then stepped it up a level. It became, the relationship changed in a good way. It became a professional situation. What I mean by that, you're not going to just remix one, you're going to go and start from scratch and produce an album. And I was like, that's a big deal for me, because I'd only ever produced my own music. But I had Steve Osborne, who in his own right is fantastic. I mean, Steve is a great producer. And I was lucky to have Steve working alongside me on some of these remixes later on in my career, because I was doing it on my own, and I was doing it with a guy called Rob Davis, and then Steve brought a lot to the table for myself. So it just all felt a natural progression to get to the point where we would then become their producers.
Do you know who it was who was driving that relationship though? What was it Tony that had come up with the idea? Was it Nathan? Was it the band? Like who was the person who, in the first place?
I think I don't know. That's more of a question for them, because they decide. It's not like I'm going, listen, let me do this, let me do that. It doesn't really work like that. The record company approaches you, or the band, or even the manager, and says, listen, that's how it came about. I don't know their internal talks. All I know that when I got involved with Rope for Luck, it changed their sound. It changed everything about Happy Mondays, from being that jingly jangly band which they were known as, to something that was more focused, something that that generation at that time that were into acid house, taking pills, going for it, were all into, right? That was the change. So that's why they came back to me and said, could you do Hallelujah? And when I done Hallelujah, then it led on to the album, because suddenly Happy Mondays were known for this,
right,
not for that.
Right.
And that's when they started to become a lot more popular across the board and the country.
Yeah. Can you remember the first time you met Paul?
I can remember the first time I met the band. I didn't necessarily meet any individual first. I mean, I was in Hacienda and met Bez, and Shaun briefly, but I think collectively was when I met the band, and it was like, okay, are we going to do this? Because I had a different way of working to them, and we had to make sure that we're all on the same page here. Usually when you record a band, they're all in the same room and they're playing, and then the producers, and giving them directions and telling them what to do. But I didn't do it like that. I didn't produce the record like that. It was individual moments with the members of the band, talking them through the process of what we'd done when it came to remixing, that now we're gonna do from scratch. Because I would get, let's say, Rope for Luck, I would listen to each individual channel and say, keep that, get rid of all that. Let me double check that. And then I'd start to add layers. When me and Steve produced the Mondays, it was a blank piece of canvas. There was demos, rough songs, but within that rough song, I always knew there was a diamond somewhere.
Yeah.
And Shaun's lyrics were brilliant. Yeah. I mean, you know, call the cops, you're twisting my melon, man. You know, I'd like to teach the world to sing. You know, these lines spilled over into the club world. The clubs I was playing at that time, people were like, yeah, call the cops. And it wouldn't mean call the cops. It would mean, you know, it's going off, we're having a great time. But that could be my interpretation and someone else's interpretation was different. So I didn't meet Paul, just Paul, I met the band.
Mm-hmm. What was your impression? Your first impression of them?
That was it. It was like, man, these guys are great. I mean, I think because we were all into clubs, maybe they weren't into clubs for the club music, but they were in the hacienda. Mm-hmm. They were in the clubs. It just, everything about my relationship with Happy Mondays felt natural. It was one of those special moments you don't get often in music. You don't get often, this is going to be a hit. We are creating more than a record. We are creating a movement. You very, very rarely get that. Otherwise everyone would be making hits. Right?
Did you know?
I knew. I'm so, this isn't me being big-headed, it's just being honest. I was so confident that this was the beginning of something big. I remember I'm playing it on the dance floor, seeing the reaction of the crowd, right? Mm-hmm. I'm sensing this is something new and fresh and different. It was, you know, it was the right time at the right place, and the music, it doesn't happen often. The second Summer of Love in 1988, when everyone was dropping pills, looking at the DJ doing that, was a moment. When I was on tour with U2 playing stadiums and they've got a DJ DJing before the biggest rock band in the world, that was a moment. You have moments in music, and the key to those moments is to recognise them and to act on them, because we all have moments in life. And if you don't act on it, you may regret it. Remember, I should have got on that plane and came to LA and tried to see if it worked in LA. And if it didn't, I could have went home. Well, you did it and it worked. But you did it. You seized the moment. And in music, it's just, you know when the moment's right. You can feel it. And me and the Happy Mondays has always been right.
How amenable were they to you? I mean, effectively, you came in and you changed the vibe completely. How amenable did anybody fight you?
It's a great question, because out of that question have come other situation with bands where they didn't trust me. What's the point of hiring me if you're not going to let me do my job? There's no point, you know. And the Mondays hired me to produce their album, and they let me, even though they come from a different world, they let me do it the way that I needed to do it to make it work. They trusted me, they listened to me, we had conversations. Why do we need to do it like this? Well, let me explain why. But remember, we'd already mixed 2 songs, and then I'd done Step On, and Step On was huge. So it was always a case of, let's do Step On, and then it was huge. So it was, why wouldn't we all want to go in the studio and make an album? Since then, I've gone on and produced other bands, and I've had that conversation. Well, everything I'm trying to do to make this record work, in respect of you hiring me as a producer, you are stopping. So why hire me? It ain't gonna work unless you let me do what I do. And the Mondays let me do what I could do to make that record work. I I sensed what could work on the dance floor because it had been proven with Rope for Luck, Hallelujah, U2, Cure. I'd done it. So, you know, why would you hire me unless you wouldn't want me to do what I do? Doesn't make sense.
And the process of recording that album, you said that everybody did everything individually.
Yeah.
And was there any pushback against that? No.
The band, I think, as I completely believed in them that I could get the best results, I think they believed in Steve and I that we could deliver, you know, and where Steve was stronger than me, I would hand it over to him and he would sit there and work on certain aspects of the record. Where I was stronger than him, I would sit there, for instance, with Gary, and I was like, your rhythm's too loose. Your rhythm needs to be a tighter rhythm that would work not only as a new Happy Monday sound, but it would work on the dance floor and it would be fresh, because drummers at that time were kind of just a bit looser. It was that sound, whatever you want to call it, the Manchester, I don't know, whatever it was called. Indie was the word at that time. It wasn't indie dance. It was just indie music, and it was a different approach. And my approach was, your rhythms have got to be tighter, so everything fits. It's much more melodic, structured, and people can dance to it, but also listen to it. And that was the difference between what the Mondays were before. You couldn't dance to the Mondays.
Right.
It didn't work.
Do you remember a moment in time when you thought, this is gonna, was there a moment when you were in a club when something specific happened? Do you remember?
The club hit for me was Rope for Luck. I knew it would work on the floor because of what I'd done to it. As I say, it's got hip hop loops all over it. It's a hip hop record with a guitar line and some samples and Shaun. Yeah. What is Rope for Luck? What does Rope for Luck mean? Yeah. No, I don't know what Rope for Luck means, but the track worked and the whole idea of it came together and worked because of the elements put together, but it's not the strongest chorus. It's not the strongest song. It's
that hook though, isn't it?
It's the elements that come together that made it work. What become the big hit when you knew, hang on, we got club records with Hallelujah and Rope for Luck, and they may go in the charts at number 30 or 40, whatever. But when we knew we had a real record and a hit, Step On. Yeah. When Step On came, it was like, oh my God, this is a proper international record. This is a hit record with a fresh sound and a different approach and a great bunch of not the best musicians in the world, but who had a vibe and a swagger, with a great vocalist with Rowetta, with a character like Bez. It was a moment in musical time that you look back on and go, wow, man, what is this? And the kids wanted to buy into it, and they did. They bought into the swagger, the look, the style. Again, it was right time, right place. And because I was coming from the clubs, because Steve was coming from the rock, because the band was indie, it just worked. Now you can't even analyse it and go, well, why did it work? I have my opinion, Shaun's going to have a different opinion, Rowetta may have a different, I don't know, right? But those opinions all come into the melting pot and made it work. Yeah. So the Mondays when we came to Los Angeles, just round the corner actually, how strange is that?
I know.
So I never thought in a million years I'd be living round the corner from Capitol Records. We went in, we did it, and we nailed it. It was 6 weeks, straight to the point. We were on a real high. Every member of the band, I honestly think they knew that there was something special here.
Right. Do you remember the days?
There was fun. We went out, we partied. there was me and Steve. Look, I had a personally. It was because it kind of fell on my shoulders. I was the producer, so there was a lot of pressure. It's the first album I'd ever produced outside of what I do. It was a rock band or an indie band. It was at Capitol Studios. It was £100,000, and there was a record company here in America that was like watching. You know, you had a lot of eyes on you, and I didn't want to let anyone down. So I would just be so focused on work. I'd be like, you know, Steve and myself would be sitting talking, how can we make it better? What can we do? Can we bring this element in? So we were doing a lot of work. I went out probably a couple of nights in that whole period. I would sit and analyse the mixes. I would, you know, it's a big moment for me also, because it was all on my shoulders. If it didn't happen, you know, it could come back on me, and it was also a moment for Steve and myself in our careers but we were so confident, or I was so confident, that I knew it was going to happen.
You feel that they delivered on their side of things?
I think that they trusted us enough to let us suggest and do things. Listen, it's Happy Monday's record. It's Happy Monday's album. I'm merely a producer. But I think that they trusted us so much that we could push the envelope and say, well, let's try this, let's do that.
Yeah.
So it was very, a very creative space, and there's nothing better than the world, in my opinion, than to be in a creative space in a job that you love. Whatever that job is, whoever you are, if you're in a creative space, it brings the best out of you. And I think that album brought the best of everyone out of them, because I would sit with Shaun and I'd be like, lyrics, what are we talking about? Where are we going? What's happening? Talk to me, tell me. Go away and think about it. What melodies you're going to come up? I was like, that, come on. You really? You think we can't come up with something better than that? Because I was trying to push him to bring the best out of him.
And he was responsive to that?
Yeah, very responsive.
And they all showed up on time? It wasn't that they were going out getting drunk and drugs and getting beat? We all lived in apartments together. So there was a bunch of apartments where everyone lived. Oakwood Apartments in Burbank, I believe.
Oakwood Apartments in Burbank, which I drive by and go, oh, it's changed the name now.
Oh, is it?
Yeah, so we were in these, excuse me, we were in these apartments, and we were all together, and when the sessions would end, they would go and do what they would do, and they weren't, as far as I was aware, they weren't going out much. We would go out, because going out to clubs is usually where I'm into me, right? Because that's what I do for a living. So I'd know where to go, and I'd be like, right, Friday night, let's all go out. Fuck it, man. Let's go out and get drunk and have a good time, because we put in a great work all week in the studio. And I honestly think that they loved it in the studio, because they sensed it as much as we all did. We were in this moment. So, you know, I suppose they had their moments with one another, like Shaun and Paul maybe did, but I wasn't really aware of that. No. I was on Nathan's back a bit. Nathan was the manager. I was like, make sure you keep this in check. I need Shaun tomorrow at 2:00. You know, drugs were going on, of course. You know, no one's going to hide that. Go and do whatever you want to do, but be here at 2:00 tomorrow, because we're going to record your guitar line, your piano, your vocals, whatever it was, and it would happen.
Yeah. Tell me about your impressions of Paul. I mean, you've hinted about.
Paul was quiet. Paul was thorough. Paul would turn up and do what he wanted, what he needed to do. we could sit with Paul individually and say, change it up a bit, do this, do that, and he would. But Paul was solid. Paul was always a solid member of the band that you spoke to, and what you asked him to do, he would do, and do quicker than other members of the band. Right. And that was Paul's role. You've got a room full of characters. It's not easy to manage characters. You know, I live in a world of characters with all my friends, and just trying to get them on a tour bus to go to a show is, you know, they're late, they're this, they're stopping off, picking up, it's like, what's going on here? You know, hence a tour manager. So as a producer, you'd sometimes look at the manager and go, you know, but the manager was off, you know, as I mentioned briefly, he was off doing his own things. But Paul was thorough. What I remember, Paul was, none of them were trouble. None of them I had issues with. I think they all knew that we were on to something that was special, and I think that's why they were all on time and turned up.
Yeah. Do you remember DJing at Paul's first wedding?
Yeah.
Not my one. Tell me about that day.
I think I was so intertwined with the Happy Mondays at one point. People thought I was from Manchester.
With an accent like that?
I know, until they heard me talk, they were like, I'm not from Manchester, what are you talking about? But, you know, and then people thought I was in the band. I mean, you know, you're part of, no, I'm not part of Happy Mondays. So I'd done a lot with them, you know, and the wedding was just, of course I come and play some music at your wedding, you know what I mean? It's like, we're friends, not a problem. You know, of course I come to Ibiza and open for you, you know, at the Coup Club, or of course I open for you at Wembley. It was, you know, it was that moment. Look, I did a bunch of remixes of Stone Roses. I DJ'd at Spike Island. I was the resident at clubs in Manchester, and Hacienda I did my spell. I mean, I was there when they shot Rope for Luck, the video. There was a lot going on with me in Manchester for some reason. But yeah, I mean, it's... I have interesting thoughts about that, because they've never done another record after the Tina Weymouth album. They haven't done a record.
No.
There's no new music. And Alan McGee, who's their manager, when I saw him, I was like, why didn't he do a new record? You know, and then he goes, they don't want to.
That's not true.
Oh.
No, I'm sure.
Maybe Shaun
didn't want to do. All the band were gagging to do an album, but Shaun wanted to do a solo album and wanted the band to put it out as a Happy Mondays album. They all said, no, we're the band, we want to write the music.
Actually, probably I have heard that.
It's true.
Yeah.
Paul talks about it at length in the podcast. Like, it was one of his biggest bugbears in life was that Shaun wouldn't do another album. But he wrote one with somebody, I think, in LA, and said, right, we're going to put this out. You can have some publishing, but we're putting it out as a Mondays album. And Gaz and Paul and Mark were like, no, we're not doing that. We didn't write it. We don't want to put our name to something that... This is like one of...
Did you hear it?
Yeah, it was all right, but it wasn't a Mondays album. Like, it's... why not take the recipe, take the elements that worked before?
Absolutely.
Like, why...
And the sounds, right?
Yeah.
You know, when you hear that piano line on Step On, or where you hear the guitar line, it's the sounds. You can't just bring in someone, you know...
But you did do another record with them. So about... 8 years later, you went back in the studio after they split up and they reformed again.
So
tell me about that.
We got offered to do their fourth, our second, right? Is that right?
Yeah, that's right.
And of course I wanted to do it. I mean, you know, who wouldn't want it, coming off of a platinum record, you know, a record that changed culture. In terms of bringing dance and indie music together and creating a sound called indie dance that Enemy and Melody Maker always used to say to me, oh, you know, this sound, this indie dance. And so of course we wanted to do it, but as I mentioned briefly, there was no demos. It was a recipe. I know enough about music to know when to do something and when not to. And I was like, we can't go to Jamaica. And then drugs were really, really in the mix, big time. There's a lot heavier drugs going on. You want us to go to Jamaica and record an album with nothing, just to go there, and you know everyone's going to go like that. They weren't getting on, so everyone's going to go their own ways. And then suddenly it's down to Steve and I to go. It didn't feel right for me, and I was the one who put my hand out, and I was like, I ain't doing it. It doesn't. We're going to be in trouble here, Steve. It ain't going to work, and that's when. And as I say, I love them. They're great. I'm a fan, but it didn't feel right, and I'm glad we didn't do it. And Nathan McGough was like, you made the biggest fucking mistake of your career. Da 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 da. They're gonna be as big as Pink Floyd, and I'm like, Nathan, I want to do this, but you've got to do demos. We've got to figure out what we're gonna do, because if we don't, it's gonna turn into a mess. So we left it. We moved on all in our lives. I went on and produced stuff, and then I don't know how it came about, but I'm a fan. Of course I wanted to work with the Mondays again. So I think it was for a movie. I think it was for a Christmas album.
Oh, The Ghosts of Oxford Street.
That's when it came around. During that session, we did a couple of tracks.
Right.
And it was a cover. What was it?
We couldn't remember at the time, but the track was actually Staying Alive, which was originally, of course, done by the Bee Gees.
I don't even know if it came out, but we did it, and it wasn't. The whole thing had changed.
Then when the band had reformed in 1999, Paul went into the studio with the boys to record The Boys Are Back in Town.
There wasn't the same feeling in the studio. Well, I told you what happened upstairs.
Do you want to tell me again?
Do we want to mention it?
Yeah, I think we actually talked about that.
So, I was in the Real World studio, Peter Gabriel's studio. I was so excited to go down there. It's a residential studio. And we were recording. And then Steve came to me and said that a bunch of his belongings have gone missing. And I'm like, what are you talking about? I checked the whole room, stuff has been stolen. Wallet, money, and the band were there, the band's entourage were there, and then I pulled Shaun to the side, and I was like, listen, we got a problem here, unless this wallet and money's put back within the next hour, we're walking, and I'm never going to work with you guys again. You don't fucking do that, that is disrespectful, rude, and who fucking steals anyway? I mean, you know, where's your head at? And let alone the producers who
Making the album, yeah.
Really? Is that where we're at now? Have we got this low that we're doing this? So I'm like, I'm out of here, man. And I said, Steve, we're going. It got resolved. It got resolved. It was put back where what was stolen was put back, and it certainly wasn't the band. It was, you know, and I'm sure it was embarrassing for them as much as it was.
I remember it.
For us, and it just left a bad taste, and that killed the vibe. It killed it there and then. What we had in that room in that moment, where we were like, we're gonna make a fucking great track. It's Thin Lizzy. It's a cool record. We can just ramp it up. We can give it everything, mate. It's killed it. It was over there. Even when we were trying to do it, it was like, oh, fuck it, man. You know, I don't want to be here. I don't want to sit around and be around these guys, because the entourage was still there.
Right, they got rid of the guy that didn't know, I think. They kicked him out.
I'm sure.
Yeah.
And so they should have.
Absolutely, yeah.
Right?
You should never have been there in the first place.
No,
He was a heroin addict.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's what you was dealing. You just said it. You're dealing with heroin addicts who just steal, right? Because of what the money for the drugs.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, they should never have been there. And it should have just been us
and the band.
And that's what it was in LA. And that's now, if we'd recorded that album, Pills, Thrills, in England, I don't know if it would have been as good, because it would have been too many people in there mucking it all up. They couldn't go anywhere or call anyone or see anyone, because there was no one here for them to do that with.
Right.
That's what gets you into that work ethic moment where you're just locked in music. You can express yourself in this moment, but when you've got all these people coming in, it's hard to capture that moment, and the Mondays need that.
Yeah. Would you
Otherwise they're all over the shop.
Would you ever work with them again?
Would I ever work with Happy Mondays again? Yes, I would. I don't know if I'm the right person now. You know, would I work with them again? Of course I would. Of course I'd. But it'd have to be, what are we doing? What are we trying to achieve? Where are we going? There's questions. See, we created a sound and a movement. Now, what are we going to do? Well, you know, that would be my question. So you want me to produce another album? Well, what's your direction? What's your sound? Where do you want to go? You ain't done a record for 30 years. Where are we going with this? Do you want to pick up from where you was and be an indie dance, but make it more edgy and cooler and more dangerous? And you know, are you ready for that? You know, we're all older now.
What would you advise them to do?
I haven't thought about it. I mean, I don't know. I haven't. Maybe I should go away. My head's on. It's the 30-year anniversary of my record label. I'm doing creative collaborations with some older artists and some new young artists. So I'm in a different place in music. To go back and spend several weeks longer with a band, we've got to do demos, you know, what's the lyrical direction? There's a lot of questions before you even get in the studio. You know, and who's to say I'm the right guy? Maybe I'm not. Maybe they need a producer, a 25-year-old producer who's got new creative young ideas. You know.
Do you still play the records?
I'm laughing because I found my vinyl copy amongst all these fucking records. When I moved from England, all these records were in some kind of order, and we took them off the shelves, we boxed them all up, we knew where they needed to go. At that time, my assistant was working with me on doing all this. He was writing it all down, and we lost the piece of paper where everything was written down. So I don't really know where anything is, right? To be honest with you.
And you've been here like 12 years in this.
I ain't gonna sit here and go through fucking, you know, but A, B, year, month, you know, whatever, artist. But what happens is, I do come down here and I pull records. And I found an album copy, vinyl, of Pills and Thrills. And I did listen to it several months ago prior to that, COVID.
Right.
And I sat there, and for the first time in 20 odd years, I really listened to the record, and yeah, I'm proud of that record. Yeah, it's a real moment. I got a Q award for it up there. It was a great moment in my career, in Steve's career, in the Mondays' career. It's a good, solid record that you can play today, and sonically the sounds are still there. I mean, you're always going to, as a producer, go back and say, I could have maybe done that. But it was a moment in time that, for me, it was a proud moment.
We played it in the car on the way here.
Did you?
Singing along.
Did you really?
We did.
Oh,
so how do you think your career Or do you think your career would have taken any different of a trajectory if you hadn't interacted with them? And do you think theirs would have been different? I mean, obviously theirs would have. But
theirs would have been different. I hope. Look, they played an important part in my career, of course, and I'm very grateful. I don't know the answer to your question because I was working with U2. I did several remixes for them. I went on a world tour with them. I've produced and mixed and toured with Madonna. I've done the coolest bands from Massive Attack to Cure. So I don't know if it would have affected my career because I was already doing all this. Yeah. But I'm certainly happy that they're part of my life, and I will always look back on the Happy Mondays with fond memories, you know, and I love those guys. I mean, they who don't? Yeah. I mean, from what I'm aware of, you know, which my mum's told me, my friends have told me, you know, Bez and Shaun are, you know, all over TV. Yeah. They're lovable characters. They're part of British culture in some respects. I mean, they're the Happy Mondays. I mean, you don't see it with Stone Roses, you don't see it with the Inspiral Carpets, you don't see it with the Smiths, you don't see it with New Order. I mean, the Mondays are a special band. You don't see... Name another band where you see two of the front men 30 years later sitting on TV doing cooking with this or this or that or Google Box. I mean, I don't get it all here. We don't get it here. No. You know, but I'm told and I follow... Well, I follow them on social. Yeah. So...
do you remember where you were when you found out Paul had died and what you thought?
Yeah, it was a sad moment. I was here, just at home.
What did you think?
Just sad, you know. You know, as I said, Paul was a stand-up, solid guy. Yeah. You know, and he was... Remember at his wedding when we was there, it was a good vibe, you know, it was good moments. Just sad.
Yeah. It's kind of a leveler, isn't it, when our generation, you know, start to go. There's lots of musicians around that age.
Yeah. As we get older, obviously death comes closer, and life's that old cliche that's true, that it's too short. Where has it gone? I mean, what year did we do Pills and Thrills?
90, I think. Yeah.
1990. Where's it gone? I don't know why they didn't do. You know, it's none of my business. I don't know why they didn't do another record. Because there's certainly talent there.
Paul's written loads of bass lines apparently that he's left behind, so like you can use those bass lines in your new album. It's funny though that he's now talking about them. It was Gary that told me that. We'll see. We don't know. Who knows?
Tell Gary he's supporting the wrong team.
I will.
He's telling them one fuck all for 20 years, man. You're supporting the wrong team, Gary. Come and join Chelsea. Me and him will always like this on football.
I love Gaz. Gaz is one of my favourite people in the world.
And Gary's got his own group, I saw.
Yes.
He goes
Love
and does
the Family Tree.
He does his own things, right?
Yeah, and he sings and plays acoustic guitar as well.
Yeah, good for him.
Yeah, lives in Canada.
What happened to PD?
PD, I saw him at the funeral. He's living in Manchester. He rejoined the band when they reformed, but only lasted a few gigs.
Because Shaun went and done Black Grey.
Yeah.
I followed them from afar.
Yeah.
And it was a real shame. I don't know if you know this. It's a real fucking shame. So I got, several months ago, I got a call, an email from an agent in the United States that was representing the Happy Mondays and was bringing them to America.
Yeah.
Would I like to open for them? Of course I will. So I said to McGee, yeah, of course. The concert's meant to be next month in LA.
Yeah.
And it got pulled.
Do you know why it got pulled?
I was told Shaun didn't want to come to America.
Really?
Yeah. That's what I was told. But Shaun's not feeling America. I think that was one reason. I'd love to see him perform.
Yeah.
That I would, because they do that album and I haven't seen that album ever played live.
Have you not?
No.
Really?
No.
Ah, that's
I've
a
never.
shame.
I mean, well, I have, because I've done shows with them.
Yeah.
But they were 25 years ago.
Okay. The shows got better the live shows got better and better. They were really, really good live. Like they still had it, and they worked really hard on the live shows.
Yeah, no, I would love to see. I'd love to see them do that album live.
Yeah.
Because I think there's a Pills Feels tour.
There was.
There was.
Yeah, the end of last year. I think the end of last year was the 30th anniversary.
Right, fucking 30 years.
But you might get the chance. You never know. But yeah.
Oh, I hope I will. It's not for trying. It's just when I go home, they're not playing,
Right.
and when I'm here, they're playing.
Yeah.
You know, so and with my touring and festivals, and it just doesn't fall.
Yeah.
You know, so I was so excited when they said, "Okay, well, you're going to open for New York and LA, and then we're going to do the Palladium here."
Paul was really excited about doing the gig in LA. You know, finally gets to play where he lives.
Yeah,
you know?
yeah, exactly.
And then, yeah.
Not to worry. All right, I'm going to jump.
Thank you so much.
Thanks
really,
so
really
much.
appreciate
You're welcome.
it. That was really, really good. Welcome to another special bonus edition of the Paul Ryder tapes. This week, we have a very, very special soul. He sported one of the most legendary haircuts in Madchester. He was a club DJ and a radio DJ for many, many years, but is most famous and legendary for using his organ to rapturous reception with the Inspiral Carpets, who are still gigging to this day. He is the lovely legend that is Clint Boon. Do you know much about what I'm doing? Did I explain to you, or do you want me to tell you?
I don't think so. I know it was like you'd done a project with Paul, a podcast-related project.
Right.
So it's a continuation of that now, is it? You just decided to...
Well, what it is, so we broke up 6 years ago. We had a year where we didn't get on very well, and then we just became really good friends. And I did a different podcast, and I played it to him because I talk about him a bit in it. And I just wanted to it was about dating, so I just wanted to make sure he was okay with it. And he was like, "Oh, this is brilliant. Oh, great." And from him listening to that came the idea of him doing a podcast with me, because he wanted to write a book to correct all the lies that had been spouted over the years about the Mondays. And I knew he'd never get round to it. So I said, "Why don't you talk a book to me? So I'll prompt you with the questions and you just tell your story in as much depth as you can. And like warts and all the bad stuff, all the drug addiction stuff, all the breakdown stuff, the infidelities, all the crap, as well as the Monday stuff and the good stuff." So he agreed to do that, and literally he came round to my house every Sunday for about 6 months, and he couldn't do much more than about an hour at a time because it really took it out of him, because it was like therapy really.
I can imagine,
And then the idea was that we'd take the transcripts of the show and produce a book, so it's in his words, but he doesn't have to physically write it. So then the idea was as well that we would bring in some other people who he'd rub shoulders with just to give their perspective, and me and him would talk to that person and include them in the conversation. But we thought, well, we'll get the life story down first, and then that'll be the launch pad for these other conversations. 12 days after he finished recording his life story, he died, and it was like 12 days. Like it was really bizarre. Incredible. Because I think both of us felt a real sense of urgency to get it finished before he went to England. It was really odd. And then when I got the call saying that he was dead, I said, "Oh, I knew." It was like, I didn't know, but it was so odd. Anyway, so I'm left with about 15 hours of recording of him, his whole life story in depth. So now I'm going back over it and in interviewing people who he talks about within that, just to, and I'll drop them in, and we might create both. So we filmed everything as well. So it was primarily going to be a podcast, but we filmed everything. So I decided to film all the interviews as well, and I'm just going to make a long, detailed series, and maybe some of the bigger interviews will become like bonus episodes of their own that are related to it. So it's his story. Obviously, a lot of that is the Mondays, but it's also all the rest of the stuff as well. So
Yeah,
obviously, so obviously, you've been a figure in his life. I know he had huge love and respect for you. You were very supportive of his big arm stuff. I remember going with him a couple of times when you interviewed him when you were at XFM.
XFM, yeah.
And so I just thought, and it was, and I remember you DJing at Chico's fundraiser. So you've been a friend for a long, many years. So I just thought it'd be very appropriate to ask you to be involved in this as well.
No,
so
I'm flattered. I'd have been offended if you didn't invite me to be part of it.
Oh, thank you. Oh, that's lovely. Yeah, and he was, obviously, you know, Paul, he was a very kind of understated man, but he did feel very deeply for people and was always very touched when people showed him love, you know, and was very grateful for that, but maybe couldn't articulate it very well. I mean, I think we all have trouble articulating feelings to people, so it's just nice that we've got the opportunity to actually talk at a kind of deeper level, really, I guess.
Yeah.
So I guess the best place to start is at the very beginning and talk about how you first came across Paul and the Mondays and your first impressions and your first experiences with them.
The first time I came across the Mondays was, I think it was January of 85. And New Order were doing a couple of gigs around the north of England. So one was in Blackburn. And then the night after they played in Leeds at Tiffany's. And I think the band that played in Blackburn were called Blue in Heaven.
All right, yeah.
And then the band that played in Leeds the next night, I'd never heard of them, they were called Happy Mondays. And I thought, I wonder if this is a bit of a trick, like, because it's like Blue in Heaven and Happy Mondays. It's like Happy in Heaven and Blue Monday. So I thought, is this like a little New Order sort of gag? Anyway, there were two completely different bands. Happy Mondays that night was just like nothing I'd ever seen. It was just like a bunch of lads waiting for a buzz, like but making music at the same time. It just looked so ramshackle and the way they dressed, it was like they looked like they'd not got dressed up to do the gig. You know what I mean? Just these were the clothes that just worn through the day, tracksuits and whatever else. And so I was smitten with the band from the first time I saw them. And then it was soon after that I'd start to hear the music being played on. I don't even know if they'd made a record at that point. I don't think they made any records. So when I started hearing records like The Egg, which I think Tony the Greek might have played on his Sunday night show, maybe on Piccadilly Radio. I started hearing this music. I'd never heard music like it in my life. It was just so funky but punky at the same time, you know what I mean? And it always sounded like it was about to fall apart. Even the records where they'd been in the studio and made a record, it just sounded like this is all going to crumble any moment. And I really liked that bagginess. It was baggy before I knew what baggy meant. You know, to me, baggy, as to do with the Manchester scene, was never to do with the baggy clothes. It was always the bagginess of the music, you know what I mean? And I think the Mondays were the pioneers of that. So yeah, I fell in love with the music from day one. And, you know, I think I was a big fan of the Stranglers, you know, and one of the things I loved about the Stranglers was the bass was always dominant and up front, you know, along with the keyboards. And I think with Happy Mondays, I recognised that it was probably the first band since the Stranglers to me where the bass was monumental, you know what I mean? It's like you could tell this kid on bass knew how to write a good bass line and how to play it. So, you know, going back to like Cuff Dam and Tart Tart, it was the bass just carried it beautifully, you know. So, yeah, I became a fan of Paul's work from day one. I don't think I got to meet the Mondays proper until early 1987. We played the Boardwalk. We supported them at the Boardwalk. We were famous. The Inspiral Carpets were famous for supporting every bugger that came through the Boardwalk. I think we supported more bands there than any other band supported bands there. I remember the night we played with the Mondays. I remember the sound check. I remember hanging out particularly with Mark. I, you know, really bonded with Mark. First time I've met him. But all the band then and to this day, they're just a bunch of great souls, you know what I mean? That's how I've always felt about the Mondays, and more so now than ever, really. I think as you get older, you sort of do you drop a lot of the shit that you have around you when you're youngsters, you know.
Right.
But yeah, I mean, I remember them all being great souls, and you know, I think I made some close friends from the end of the 80s with the Happy Mondays to the present day. I'm still close to all of them. You know, they are some of my favourite people in the world are in that band, and now, you know, and Paul was one of them, you know.
Yeah.
That's
nice.
And over the years, I always remember him being just a dead solid character. I know he had his issues from time to time, and his you know, problems that he dealt with that were quite public knowledge at the time. But he was always a dead solid geezer, and always had time. It felt like he always had time for me, and yeah, he remained that great soul right until the last time I saw him.
Yeah.
So yeah, then he had his big arm moment where I think at the time when he had big arm, I got the feeling that he needed help with that band. I think people would have preferred him to still be working with the Mondays, but he wanted to get that out of his system, and he did so, and he put out some great tracks. And I had the pleasure of getting him on XFM a couple of times on my evening show it was at the time. Yeah, I mean, what a great man. What a great man, and what a great musician. I think he's going to go down in the history books as one of the great musicians of this part of the world, and certainly of that genre. You know what I mean?
Do you remember any specific anecdotes to do with your time when you supported the Mondays at the Boardwalk or in those early days?
I remember anecdotes of seeing them in the Hacienda, but a lot of that's still not broadcastable, even though we all know what was going on. But it was quite shocking to see it. As a wide-eyed young lad, I was like raised in a corner shop in Oldham as a proper working class, you know, the son of a working class couple. No drugs in my life right up until, you know, that sort of era, I suppose. Really, never took drugs, never saw people doing drugs. It was just alien to me. And then suddenly you're in the Hacienda and there's these scamps at the back that, you know, we heard were in a band, and it was the Happy Mondays, this band that was Team New Order, and there's all sorts going on in the back there, on the back benches, in the little booths, you know. And yeah, we know what was going on now in hindsight. But yeah, at the time it was a bit shocking, and it was a kind of world I didn't really want to get too involved with. You know, I love the music, I love the band, the Happy Mondays, but I think our band we famously didn't get too into that drug scene. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
We were by no means judgmental of anybody that was into it. It's just, I think as working class young lads from Oldham we'd had shit day jobs, some of us, and we didn't want to go back to that. So we really protected our band. We wanted to really make sure we survived it and made it for, you know, not just for this year. Let's still be doing this in 10 years. I mean, here we are, 34 years after we're still doing it. Mind you, the Mondays did all the drugs, and they're still going strong, aren't they? And looking better than ever. So, yeah, maybe it was us that lost out there. Should have gegged in there and got a bit.
So who came first? Did the Inspirals come before the Mondays, or was the Mondays slightly before the Inspirals?
I think timing-wise, probably the same, because the seeds of the Inspirals started off in the early 80s. It was like Graham, guitarist, Stephen, the singer, who's still the same guys I'm working with now. And, you know, I joined 86, I think I joined the band. So, yeah, I think time-wise, they probably both came together about the same time, you know, in the aftermath of punk and everything that came around that time. I mean, the Inspirals were really big into psychedelic furs. That was one of the big influences that made them start the band. And I think when they first became a band, they were called the Furs.
Really?
After the psychedelic furs. And if you think about the name Inspiral Carpets, it's another version of psychedelic furs, isn't it? Inspiral Carpets.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I
It's
never
you know,
thought that. Right.
Yeah, well, I've only figured it out in recent years, but I've not even discussed that with Graham. I keep meaning to mention it, but because the story was always like they came up with the name by getting a dictionary and getting two words, and it was Inspire and then Carpets. But I think they wanted a name that sounded like psychedelic furs. That's what I think. My journey through life got so much better than what I had planned the moment I met the Inspirals and joined that band. You know what I mean? Because punk had changed my life. At 1976, I saw the Pistols at the Electric Circus in December '76. So they did the Free Trade Hall in summer, which I wasn't at that gig, but then they came back in December, played the Electric Circus, and it had the same effect on me that night that it had on the 40-odd people that were in the Free Trade Hall gig. I just dropped everything, dropped out of college. I was at art college, potentially going to university. to do you know, a degree in art or whatever, diploma in art, and I just dropped a lot and got out of there because I wanted to get into bands and being on stage. And it took me a few years, but that's how I ended up on that journey that led me to join the Inspirals. And you know, here we are now in 2023. We're back on the road, and it's the most. I'm enjoying this tour more than I've ever enjoyed my time with the Inspirals in the past. I think because we are older, and there's less issues, less baggage, more appreciation. You know, we've lost a lot of friends over the years, haven't we? And
Isn't it incredible though that you can go to one concert and literally your life trajectory changes overnight from that? That's the power of music, isn't it? That's the power
totally.
of that's.
It
really...
was for me. I'd grown up in love with music, obsessed with music. I'd grown up loving Elvis Presley through the late 60s and the 70s. I was into 50s rock and roll music. I was quite obsessive about music generally, but I never really thought I could do anything about it because kids like me from Oldham, working class kids from a town like Oldham with no music skill whatsoever, just didn't end up on top of the pops. So it was that moment of seeing that night when I saw on stage at the Electric Circus, it was the Buzzcocks, Johnny Thunder's Heartbreakers, the Clash, and the Pistols.
Wow.
And seeing like literally working class kids. I mean, Steve Diggle out at the Buzzcocks. I was at art college with his brother Phil. So I'm stood there like watching Steve Diggle playing bar chords because he wasn't like Townsend-esque then like he is now. It's pretty simple, you know, guitar bar chords, if I remember right. But it was like, I could do that. He lives near us and his dad's a truck driver. You know, my mum and dad have got a kind of shop. And it's just like, I just thought I can do it now. I can do it. You know, you don't have to be a great musician and you don't have to have a, you know, Pete Shelley sounded as broad as I did. You know what I mean? Didn't he? He just had the same, you know, albeit from a different suburb of Manchester. But so it's just something like, God, I can do that. And I'm going to do it. And that's it, dropped everything and set off down that path.
Do you think?
But yeah, so like I say, it can be a single gig. It can be, for some people, it can be a single record, can't it? Or it can be a book that you read and that changes your life. But to me, that night, 9th of December 1976, was my road to Damascus experience. Absolutely.
Wow, amazing, amazing. Do you think that the Mondays and the Inspirals could have influenced kids in the same way further on down the line?
Yeah, I think at the time I wouldn't have imagined that was going to happen, but I've seen it in retrospect.
Yeah.
I meet a lot of people that were inspired by our scene particularly, but I meet a lot of people that were inspired by, you know, the keyboard sound that I played, because at that point nobody in this part of the world had a screaming farfisa as a lead instrument. No. You know, it's like some bands would go for the Hammond sound. You know, that was the go-to sort of cool organ sound in the 80s, but I went for something that was much more shrill, more cutting. It was more like just a scream, you know what I mean? And so yeah, I think we did inspire people. I mean, the Mondays inspired me no end. I was like very vocal back then about the fact that every time I went to see an Happy Mondays gig, I literally was like down for the next 2 days because I just thought we can't do what they're doing. We can't be that good. They're another level. They're otherworldly. You know what I mean? And I'd come away literally just beating myself up about how shit we were. And then it'd take me a couple of days for people to say, no, you're not, you're great, you're good. I'm like, are you sure? Are we good? I'll give it another go then. You know what I mean? But yeah, and then I mean, I wrote a song on one of my Clint Boon Experience albums, which I did in the late 90s, Presley on Oldham Street, and it's a spoken word opening track of an album. And that old title, Presley Walks, it's based on the lyric that I wrote, Presley walks down Oldham Street singing cuff dam, cuff dam, cuff dam. And that was all inspired by seeing Shaun of the Mondays in Oldham Street Saturday afternoon on his way to Affleck's or wherever he was going. And it's like, you know, there's references like that along my sort of timeline that are purely to show me love for the Happy Mondays. You know what I mean?
Right.
Yeah, I mean, we're all, the Inspirals were all massive Mondays fans all the way through. And there's a little funny blip where there was something in one of the music papers. I think John Robb did a piece in Sounds or Melody Maker, and it was a big piece on the Mondays. And he phoned me. I remember him phoning him up. I was at home and he said, do you want to give us a quote about the Mondays? And I did this glowing review about how much I loved them and all that. I can't remember the exact wording of it, but probably still out there on the internet. But Shaun took it the wrong way. I think he took it as me, I don't know, being condescending or being patronising or criticising, but I wasn't. It's purely, I love that band. And I think for a few weeks after that, there was a bit of sniping in the press, and I think Shaun had a go at us, and then our lads, our rhythm section had a go at him in one of the magazines. So
Good.
it was that usual little, it was the press putting things up, putting people up against each other. Not as serious as the Blur and Oasis one that came later on. Certainly not as, you know, mainstream news, headline news, but yeah, I mean, even during that blip, I just thought, I love this band, and you know, I'm going to stick with them. And we went through a period of, every time we put a single out, probably from 92 to 94, we'd get a fax from Shaun in the factory. He was in the factory offices. He'd send us a fax saying, love that new single, top new single, Carpet Heads, or whatever he'd put. So,
that's nice.
Yeah. Later on in life, when Shaun was going through his, that period where he was financially crippled because of the management problem that he had. And during that time, I got a call from Bez, because I was doing a lot of DJing at that point. And Bez called me up saying, can you get X some DJ work? You need some money coming in. So from that moment, I was getting Shaun a lot of work. We're doing a lot of DJ gigs together. And that was lovely. I'm driving up and down the country with him in my car, my little Saab, and he'd be in the passenger seat here and, you know, reminiscing. And I think that was one of my favourite times of my career, my working life, really. Being hanging out with Shaun and going to these weird little towns doing DJ sets together, and then getting him back home, packing him off to bed and all that. But yeah, it's just, yeah, I love the fact that we're still mates. You know, even now, you know, I think every week I have contact with at least one of them, whether it's Bez or Oetta or Mark and Shaun. It's just like really nice family to be part of. You know what I mean? We did a tour together, didn't we? Was it back in 2012, was it ish? We did a tour where we supported the Mondays on some big gigs, pretty big gigs, and that again was a really nice tour to be part of, because, you know, we're all a bit older and greyer now, and we're just all more tolerant of everything these days, and more appreciative of everything.
How did you feel when the Mondays reformed in 20? So there'd been a long time when the original lineup weren't together, and then in 20, and Shaun had been touring with session players and stuff under the Mondays name, but then they all got back together in 2012 with the original lineup, even including PD. Do you remember having feelings about that particular time? Were you pleased?
Yeah, that was buzzing, but just absolutely. Yeah, I get. Yeah, I mean, just being as objective as I can, forgetting my friendship with the band and my relationship. As a fan of the Happy Mondays, seeing that lineup come back together was like perfect. You know what I mean? So yeah, and then to end up playing with them on that tour was even better.
Yeah. So what was it like? What was the difference? You supported them in the very early days, and you supported them again in that 2012 period. How had the backstage situation evolved or changed between those two eras?
Less drugs, more early nights. But it was what it was like. I think Shaun was pretty much after every gig he'd be getting off back to the hotel to get his head down or whatever. And you know, that's the world we're in at the moment. You know, I'm still, I like an early night. I mean, to be honest, I mean, I don't have any days off, so we're touring at the moment, and the days when we're not gigging with the Inspirals, I'm on the radio, so I'm coming straight from gigs to come and do the radio show and that. So, but yeah, I think you learn to just handle yourself and look after yourself a bit more as you get older, don't you?
Right. Yeah.
So I mean, I like a drink. I like a drink, but I'm not tanning the booze as such. You know, even on a night where, you know, got a night out with the band after a gig, still, you know, I'm still coherent, not being sick on myself like I used to be back in the olden days. You know what I mean? It's not a good look, is it, at my age?
So let's go back in time again. So we briefly touched on Big Arm. Were you surprised that Paul decided to sing?
I remember I wasn't surprised that he was singing, because I'd done a similar thing myself. After the Inspirals took a break from 95, I set up the Clint Boon experience because I always wanted to be a singer. I didn't want to be a keyboard player. My main idea as a kid, but I grew up wanting to be Elvis Presley. That's as simple as that. You know, from being like 7 or 8, I just wanted to be Elvis Presley. So I didn't want to play keyboards. That was a complete accident. Right. But yeah, so you know, when I got the chance after the Inspirals took a break in 95, I started this other band and that was all about me singing, and I really enjoyed it. So I think when I saw Paul doing a similar thing, totally relate to it.
Okay, so moving forward in 2014, I think it was, we asked if you would DJ at Chico's fundraiser, and you kindly agreed to do that. Do you have any memories of that night or of that event?
It was lovely. I mean, because it was obviously, it was a bit of a news story at the time, wasn't it? The cannabis oil treatment and all that. But back then it was a bit like, I remember it being in the news before I even heard about the fundraiser or whatever. But yeah, and I remember meeting Chico that night. I'm sure I met him earlier in his life, but I remember that night just what a joy it was being with him, and he's a joyous person, isn't he, by nature. And but yeah, I mean, I just thought that event was amazing, and I loved being part of it. And I didn't see him again then for a while until recently. That was the last time I saw him, I think, until the funeral. There's a lot to feel thankful of, isn't there, when you're in that situation, surrounded with nice people like that.
It is, and the funeral in particular made me realise that I need to make more of an effort to gather people. Like it just felt sad that we all gathered, and there was so much love in the room, but it was underpinned with grief. Like we need to have more parties that celebrate happy things, don't we?
Yeah. I'll tell you something that happened at the funeral that I've not told many people about, but it's a really funny anecdote, and Paul would piss himself if he could hear this. So we've got a pet lizard. We've got a lot of, we at that point we had a lot of pet animals, and I think we've lost a few over the last few months, but we've got a lizard called Manny Rango, and he's about 10 or 11 years old, a bearded dragon. And the only thing that he'll eat is these, what they call mori worms, or it's like a mealworm, a big fat worm with like a shell-like body. And these are the only thing that he'll eat. He won't eat all the things that lizards traditionally eat. He's not interested. So I get these worms and I feed them with, carrot and broccoli and greens, whatever I'd like to be in the lizard. I feed these worms on it, and then I feed the worms to Manny, and he attacks them like a dinosaur, because they are actually related to dinosaurs, aren't the lizards? So we've got these worms. Anyway, occasionally they'll escape from Manny's vivarium, as it's called, like his tank, and they end up on the floor of the room where the vivarium is. It's a weird word, isn't it, vivarium? So anyway, there's been a couple of occasions where I've turned up to do a DJ gig, and one of these worms has appeared because it's escaped, and it ends up, when I put my DJ bags down, it'll climb in and come on the DJ trip with me. But the most spectacular one was when I got to the wake after the church. I got there a little bit early to set up, and there was a few people in the room, and obviously the tone was still a bit subdued, because the service was beautiful, wasn't it? I mean, what a legend, Rowetta. That was like, wow. But so I'm there setting up, and there's black sheets on the table, and I'm getting my DJ gear ready, and suddenly I see on the floor the biggest worm, and it's just like that, right? And I'm thinking, right, there's people mourning Paul, like within a few feet of me. There's people sat here waiting for the rest of the people and I'm there and thinking, there's a worm near my feet, and I've got to pick it up and dispose of it. I'm not going to kill it, 'cause I don't do that. Well, I feed them to a lizard as well. That's just as bad, isn't it? But it's worms there, and I'm thinking, fucking hell, this is somebody's wake. It's Paul Ryder's wake, and I've got a big fat worm here I need to shift. Anyway, so what I did, I managed to pick it up. The doors were all shut. I couldn't figure out how to open the doors, because all like emergency exits behind me. Nobody had opened any doors yet. So I picked it up, and I walked the full length of the room and put it behind a curtain at the far corner. I thought it's probably going to come out later on, but I couldn't do anything else with it. I didn't want to kill it. I didn't want to put it down the toilet or anything. So I did. But that was the start of my my moments at the wake of Paul Ryder, was me having an encounter with a big fat mealworm. Well, let's say he would have loved that, wouldn't he? He
would have loved it. It's symbolic in some way, I'm sure.
Yeah.
Do you remember
I wonder where that worm is now. It's probably still out there, It's probably still crawling around that venue.
Yeah. You could have put it in a sandwich or something. Probably climbed up the curtain watching everybody.
Yeah, look.
I do particularly like your impression of the worm.
I could do it better when I'm laid down, but I'm not doing that now.
No, okay.
But
Do you remember where you were when you heard that he died? Do you remember how you felt?
I think I was in here. I think I was on the radio, in the radio studio, I think, when I heard the news. Yeah, I think I was in here, and I think I phoned my wife right away to say, I've just heard Paul's passed away. Yeah, devastated, really. I mean, I've lost a lot of us have lost a lot of people over the last few years, and not necessarily to COVID, but during the pandemic, it felt like we were just losing a lot of people, you know, particularly in this industry. You know, Pete Mitchell, Dave Booth, Denise. It just seemed like every week there was somebody else going. But yeah, Paul, I don't know, it shocked me. I don't know. I mean, yeah, it was profound, isn't it, when you lose somebody like that? There's certain people in your life that you think are just always going to be there. And I think Paul, well, all the Mondays, it feels like they're all always going to be there, you know, and then suddenly one of them's gone. Yeah, I was devastated. I remember when his dad died, you know, I mean, that was a shock. I know it's several years ago, but I got onto them both right away and just said, you know, real story, was top bloke, you know, never any memories I had of Derek were positive memories, same as with Paul.
Yeah.
And I think I did a little tribute for his dad on the radio show at the time, I think,
did
and
you?
sent the recording through to Paul, yeah. And but yeah, it's nice. I know that we all, you know, our time comes on it, but it just sometimes it just don't feel right or fair, you know.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. What do you think his legacy is? Like, what do you think he's left behind that will be remembered?
Well, the obvious one is his bass playing, because that's there for eternity now, isn't it? And it is, you know, as a musician, he is probably. Well, I mean, I was going to say he's probably the greatest musician in the Mondays, but Gaz is pretty cool as well, and you know what I mean. I mean, I don't consider me to be a great musician. I always said Craig Gill, our drummer, was the best musician in our band. And I think what Paul brought to the Mondays was something that was, you know, very, very special as a musician. For a bassist to make that much of an impact in the mix. And I suppose for the band to be cool with it being that loud as well, because I think in a lot of bands it'd be like, no, you're on the bass, put that down. I want my vocals up front, and Clint wants his organ really loud. But yeah, I think that's the main part of his legacy, is his bass playing. But you know, the amount of stories you hear about, you know, his humour, his caring side, you know, being a great human being, quite humble as well. You know what I mean? I don't think he was the kind that'd ever saunter into a room like I do, shout "Boon Army, I'm here, I'm here. Where do you want me? Where am I sitting?" You know, I think it was quite understated, wasn't he, in the way he handled himself in public. I remember another, off the subject a little bit, but you know the story that's in 24 Hour Party People about them poisoning the pigeons? So I remember, this is way before I knew the Mondays, I probably wasn't even in a band at the time, but I remember that story being the headlines on the Manchester Evening News about these pigeons suddenly dropping out of the sky in Piccadilly Gardens.
Can you tell the story, because in case, for people that don't know it, just explain what that is.
They got a load of rat poison. They got onto the top of the Piccadilly Plaza, whatever it's called. There's a car park up there. In fact, Piccadilly Radio used to be up there as well. And they just fed all this I think it was rat poison, to the pigeons. And the pigeons gobbled it up, because that's what pigeons do. And next thing, they're like literally dropping out of the sky into Piccadilly Gardens and onto people's heads, and cars driving through. But it's just, I remember that story happening. I didn't know the riders at the time, but I remember it being a big news story. So another anecdote, when the first time the Inspirals ever did a gig abroad was out in near Valencia in Spain, and it was, let me think what year, probably 1987, I'm guessing it would have been. And it was, on the bill was just a load of British bands, so the Pop Guns were one of the bands, the Happy Mondays, Inspirals, the Lars played, and it was the gig where it was it was like Valencia, but not near the coast, it was inland, and it was a weird single or two-story sort of complex. It was like it had a casino vibe to it. And I think in the middle of it was like the cloisters or whatever, where the bands were playing. And it turned out to be a brothel, we found out later on. But not that you'd notice, there was nothing like that going on the night that we noticed, just somebody told us afterwards, oh yeah, it's a brothel, that place. But anyway, so we got into town in the afternoon, and the Mondays went down to the beach. So this is a gig where Shaun fell asleep on the beach in the sun with no cream on, no sun cream on. I think he had his shirt on, but anyway, when he woke up, he was really severely burnt to his hands, his feet, and his face. And they all thought it was dead funny to just leave him there in the sun. So he ended up, I don't know if he had to go, he might have had to go to hospital, but he ended up with like caked in cream and bandages. And he did this gig. And they went on about, I think they were due on at like 7 o'clock in the morning or something. Like it's one of these gigs that went on right through the night. I think they were like, they might have been the headline band. They were on at like 7 o'clock in the morning, and it was just proper wild. These bunch of mad people from Manchester who we didn't really know that well still at this point. But yeah, Shaun just really severely sunburned. I bet there's pictures out on the internet somewhere. Yeah, he wasn't in a good place at the time. But that's what I saw the Lars as well. That was the first time I'd seen the Lars play. And I remember, I think we'd played and they might have been due on a bit later. But anyway, it was like sometime through the night, we're up on the roof of this brothel in this really beautiful part. It was like in the desert outside Valencia. And the Lars were all, there was 5 of them, so I think 4 in the band and maybe the driver or road. But they all had acoustic guitars and they're all just singing and jamming. And it was just beautiful to see.
Yeah.
And they were doing covers, and then they'd be doing one of their own, and then somebody'd shout out Beef Art, and they'd go into a Beef Art track or whatever. But that was mesmerising to see, and I've said a lot of times in interviews that was like when I thought Scousers are like born to make music, whereas I think Manx like we're born loving music, and we have to work a bit towards playing. But Scousers that night, those 5 were just like they were born to play acoustic guitar. That's how it looked, just so easy and fluent, and part of the being was that they could all play acoustic guitar beautifully and sing like, fucking birds. It was just incredible.
In terms of the Liverpool-Manchester thing, I know that the Mondays have had a really good relationship with the farm, and there was a lot of kind of mutual love and support there. Did you find that as well? That even, I mean, obviously in football it's not quite the same thing, but in music, do you find that bands from the same city and the same region tend to support each other rather than see each other as competition?
I felt within the Manchester music scene there was always support. I think we all, like when we saw, we were nearly the first band of the Manchester scene to get into the top 40. I think we had number 41 with Move. And then a couple of weeks after, it was the Roses, Fool's Gold, and was that the same night the Mondays one as well, I think?
They were on Top of the Pops the same night, yeah.
So we missed out. We if we'd have got 1 or 2 places higher with Move, we would have been the first band to do Top of the Pops of the Manchester scene. But what I was saying is, seeing them lot do it was like, this is brilliant. This is helping us. Our next single, we're bound to get in the 40, which we did. So it was always, we all realised that we're part of the same sort of movement or same machine. So yeah, to me it was always, and like I said, I'd watch the Happy Mondays and think, God, so good, and we should just sack it off now. That's how, that's the impression that it had on me. But yeah, so very supportive as musicians. But yeah, in terms of the other city, I mean, I wasn't into football at that point. I'd been football off a long time before that. But I remember in the early 80s going to Liverpool to watch bands like R.E.M. or the Bunnymen. We'd go over there and watch these gigs at the Royal Court. And it'd be me, Chris Goodwin and Manny. This was like our little gang at the time. This was before the Roses and before the Inspirals. And we'd like have a little sort of pact where when we got into Liverpool, don't let anybody hear you talking. You know what I mean? It's like it was a dangerous time to be a Manc going to a gig in Liverpool. That was in the early 80s until 83, 84, that was the case. And it was only when things started happening in the Hacienda and Ecstasy started getting to be part of the scene and the rave thing started, it was only from then on where you could really go and celebrate your Mancness with your Scouse counterparts, you know what I mean, and vice versa. So in terms of the relationships that we've had and that I've had with those Liverpool bands, always some of my closest friends again, you know, like The Farm, Ian McNabb, the Bunnymen. It's just like it, the Lars. I mean, I still see John Power a lot. Never any rivalry, never any. A lot of banter in the early days, but just we're all part of the same thing. We're from the north, and we're making music. We've all been inspired by the same kind of people, whether it is the Beatles or Jefferson Airplane or Funkadelic. You know, we're all of that same. We're all cut off the same block of wood, really, aren't we? Whether we're Manx or Scousers, you know what I mean?
And you're right that one band's success actually makes the other bands more likely to be successful because they're all part of the same movement. So you're drawing attention to each other as well in the success. And I'm really glad that it was seen that way and not as being competitive and kind of rivalry. It does feel very supportive.
I talk at the moment as well. When we first heard Fool's Gold, because that was like a game-changing record, that one. Like we were driving south to do a gig. We were somewhere on the M6, and it came on. I think it was Simon Bates on Radio 1 that played it, bizarrely, somebody like that. And it was like, okay, now everything's changing now. This is different. And it wasn't jealousy. It was just like, things are going to change now in a great way, probably. We all felt like we had to up our game a bit. And before you know it, we're all doing a bit of funky drumming in our songs, you know what I mean? I think our nearest one was, I think probably Caravan. There was a single that we did soon after that. We had a straight funky drummer sort of beat. And it was like, that was our homage to what the Roses had started doing, really. But yeah, again, that wasn't rivalry. It was just like, they've created something beautiful there, and let's crack on and see what we can create that's beautiful. And I think we did subsequently make some beautiful records. But yeah, the way I've always seen it is it's always been supportive. I don't know if I would have feel if we'd have just had one single and split up, I might have been a bit bitter and twisted now. You know what I mean? I might have said, yeah, but our single was better than any of them. And we didn't get anywhere.
Are you doing a new album with the Inspirals?
We're not planning it yet, but I've got a feeling the logical result of what's happening, or the logical next step, is at some point. Yeah, I mean, we're just celebrating the back catalogue now, but I think at some point, and we've got a bit of new blood in the team now as well, because we've got a guy called Jake Fletcher on drums, who's pretty much replicating Craig's beats, you know, and he's still doing his own thing as well. We've said that, you know, you can totally, you know, be Kev Clark as much as you want to be Craig Gill. But and we've got our boy Oscar on bass. He's an amazing musician as well. So what I'm saying, for the first time ever, we've got some incredible musicians in the band, you know what I mean? Because we've always been like garage, you know, punk, you know. But suddenly we've got these kids that could probably knock out we could probably do a great Fleetwood Mac album. You know what I mean?
Brilliant.
No. I think one thing that we probably will do is, when Craig passed away in 2016, we'd been working on some recordings for what would have been the next album. So we've got quite a few things in the can that I think it'd be nice to finish that at some point as a tribute to Craig, you know, his final work.
Yeah.
So I think that's very likely to happen.
It's funny you should say that, actually, because Paul, for years and years and years, the whole band, apart from Shaun, has wanted to do a new album. And Shaun never would. Paul said I've written 20 bass lines, like new bass lines for the Mondays.
Or maybe it'd be a separate album completely, and the band just puts the tunes around that. But yeah, I mean, I'm really into things like that, you know. And yeah, I mean, there's like I said, the Craig recordings. It'd be a shame to just have them left on a shelf.
Absolutely, yeah.
You know,
and lovely to keep his memory alive and his work alive.
Yeah. Well, did you see the tribute we did to Craig recently? Like during the tour that we're doing at the moment, we have like the beginning of the encore. There's a film of Craig that comes up, so it's all movie footage that I've shot of him over the years, and we have that behind us, and then his name and the dates. But for the Manchester gig, his son Levon, who's 17, came and drummed Commercial Rain, while his dad's tributes behind him, and Levon looks exactly like his dad, bright red hair, freckles, big cheeky smile. And it was just incredible. We just absolutely smashed it. It was beautiful, and the crowd was just like in bits.
Brought the house down a bit.
Yeah, I mean, probably that gig to me is like probably the most important and highlight gig we've ever done. You know, I mean, we did things like we headlined at Reading, 1990.
I was there.
Yeah.
I was there. I was at that Reading gig with amazing fireworks.
Yeah, on the first song, we
was
had the fireworks.
It was at the end. It was at the end of
No, it was at the beginning. Oh, we probably did the end as well.
At the very end, it was amazing. Yeah.
Yeah, we decided on the day to let a lot of the fireworks off as we came on stage because people never did that. They do it at the end of the gig, and it was just I think on the day we said, yeah, let's as we're coming on stage set the fireworks off, which we did. But yeah, we had some at the end as well, and then big spotlights.
I was working at MTV at the time, and a load of us went down there, and I knew.
Yeah.
I think Mikey, do you know Mikey Lights, the lighting guy?
Yeah.
I think he was in the lighting booth, so I was standing in the lighting booth with him when you were on. And it was brilliant, like amazing show. Yeah.
Wasn't it? And we bought a video camera specially to record that gig, and video cameras then were like on your shoulder. No, I mean this is a domestic, so not a professional film, but we bought one. It was like £2,000, and it was like. Just we forgot to film it, and there's one bootleg film on the internet somewhere of somebody with a really shit camcorder, but that's the only record of that event. But going back to the monumental gigs, so we did that. We headlined GMX in '99, like all the other Manchester bands did. But the gig we did at the Albert Hall last week, because it was our first time together in 7.5 years, and through those years we all thought it's not going to happen again. We'd all written it off. We didn't want to do it without Craig. And then suddenly we're doing it, we're getting the band back out. That gig was just, you know, if there's one gig that I'd like to be judged and remembered by for the Inspirals, that'd be it. Because we pulled the rabbits out of the arts like absolute fucking magicians. We smashed it that night, and to get Levon on at the end, and it was just like, it was like, you know, like in moments like that, you think he'd sort of, you know, amble onto the stage, get behind his kit drum, and then do a little celebration bow at the end. He walked on stage, I introduced him. Nobody knew we were doing it. Ladies and gentlemen, Levon Gill. Craig's film's going at the back. And he walks up to the microphone and just goes, "All right, Madchester!" Like that before he'd even drummed. A big seller. And I'm thinking, well, I hope he does it right now. But anyway, he smashed it. Really beautiful performance then. At the end came out, did a bow, brought the house down, threw his sticks out and all that. It was just an incredible gig, and I think to me, like I said, the most important gig that we've ever pulled off. I think that.
Excellent. Oh, fantastic. Yeah. Amazing. Is there anything I've missed? Are there any other anecdotes or incidents or times when you've crossed Paul's path that you got a story about?
That's it, really. But what a geezer, and like with a lot of them, it's a pity we never got a chance to say, because you never know it's the last time you're going to see these people, do you? So. But he'll be watching us. He knows. I've got a feeling that worm on the floor at the wake, that was probably him coming back to say, you know, see you soon, Boon.
And you didn't have any and you didn't have any unfinished business with him. Like it's not like, you know, things were left on a bad note. Like that's what I'm really grateful for, is that me and him were good after like breaking up and marriage, and we were good. We got through all that, and so like, I feel quite peaceful about it.
Yeah. Same here. I mean, I don't really have fallouts with people, really. I mean, that's not in my nature. So no, definitely not any unfinished business. And I think, like you said before, I think I can rest assured that he died thinking I was an all right bloke. You know what I mean?
Absolutely. No, I know he really loved you. He was really grateful to you for, like, not just the big arm support, but the thing you did for Chico, and just generally being. Yeah. I mean, you know, you're a great person, so yeah.
I'm all right.
No, it's lovely.
No, but
and I'm really, really grateful to you for your generosity of spirit.
No, it's a pleasure. It's beautiful to be part of that family of, you know, not just the Mondays, but the other, you know, the New Order lot and the Roses, and what a family of people, you know what I mean? And what a great bunch of records we've made between us.
And what an amazing thing you've done for the city, really. I mean, you've really put the city on the musical map. The legacy, it's amazing.
Collectively, totally. Yeah.
Collectively.
And it's we've got a big thank you to Tony Wilson as well, isn't it? For
absolutely, yeah.
Like shepherding us together and putting us on that pedestal, and you know what I mean. It's like
I saw a really funny thing on it's on YouTube, and it's something that was made for schools programs about independent record labels. I'll send you the link because it's worth watching, and it's from like the mid-80s probably, and Tony's in it, and it's made for schools, but it's all about the Happy Mondays and the business of the Happy Mondays. And there's a bit with Tony Michaelides being annoyed because the Mondays didn't turn up for an interview and they were really late for something. And Tony's sitting there and he said, well, I understand why you're upset, Tony. He said, but you know what? The truth is, I really quite like that.
Brilliant.
And without Tony, if they'd been signed to a major label, they would have been dropped for lack of professionalism.
Yeah, totally. Oh, yeah.
But that lack of professionalism is what was magical about them, that out of the ramshackleness came this magic that would have been shut down if they'd been with a major label.
And they are like lovable outlaws, aren't they?
Yeah. And they're truly
the two of them
authentic,
particularly.
because they don't fake it. Like if they don't like something, you'll know that. And I think they always lived completely authentically. They didn't fake it for the record label because they didn't need to.
Totally.
Tony was so permissive in that way because he was smart and he knew that's how to deal with a band like the Mondays, and that's how to get the magic out of them.
Yeah.
So
I'll
send you the link to it because it's really interesting. Like with all these years later, it's a brilliant bit, but made for schools programs of all things.
There's so many contradictions within that sentence, isn't there? You know, like Tony Wilson, Happy Mondays, school program.
School programs.
Yeah, be careful.
I know. It was brilliant.
Brilliant.
All right, Clint. Thank you so much again. Really.
You're very welcome, Ange. It's been great talking to you.
All right.
Brilliant. Right. Well, hopefully see you soon. If we get the band out to California, I'll give you a shout.
Oh, please do. I'm there. I'll be at the front.
All right. It's great seeing you. All right, Angela. Lots of love to you.
All right.
See you in a bit.
Take care.
Say hello to Chico for me.
Oh, he's lovely, Clint, isn't he? Oh, thanks, Clint, for being so amazing. That's all we've got for you this week. Which, actually, it's not all we've got for you this week. Because coming up right now, well, at 9 o'clock, so in a few minutes, is another live stream that's happening with the legendary Phil Sachs, who we promised you last week. If you want to join, look for the details of the Zoom call in the chat, and you can ask Phil your own question face to face. So just have a look in the chat now if you're watching this live, and you can get the details and join us. We're playing out with another big arm check. This is flexing, and keep listening to the end to hear what I can only assume is a homage to the Human League. It's absolutely brilliant. I love it. It is, of course, from Paul Ryder's big arm album Radiator, which is out now. We will be back again, same time, same place next week. And if you can't wait for the next episode, it's just dropped right now on all of the podcast platforms. And the video premiere will be here as usual next week. Please subscribe to this YouTube channel. Just click on subscribe. We won't spam you, I promise. And give us a nice review on any of those podcast platforms. On behalf of Paul Anthony Ryder, I would like to thank each and every one of you individually for all the love and support that you give us. I absolutely love this community that we're building, and we've got lots more treats in store for everybody. Lots and lots of love to all of you. Big love and thanks to the legend that is Clint Boon. And of course, as usual, we give it up for the man himself, the late, great Paul Anthony Ryder. Have a fantastic week and see you soon. See you soon in the chat with Phil Sachs. Lots of love. Bye.
Check it all out, then you'll find that I'm right. You gotta come on and shine, don't you know that Glistening Productions.